Hello there, everybody. It's WittyJojoke here, and today I'm going to be talking about the manga series Holyland. So, Holyland is a series published from 2000 to 2008, and it's 182 chapters long. So it's pretty long, but once you set on the journey of reading it, it goes by really quickly. Trust me, it really keeps you hooked in, and pacing doesn't drag it out too long. It finishes the story at a perfect time. So, Holyland is mainly focused on street boxing, which is really interesting because it leads to lots of unpredictability with what the fights are going to be, like what martial arts style is this person going to use, how are they going to use it, and what moves are they going to use. And a lot of illegal moves are used because, again, it's not like actual boxing or any other actually official martial art fight. Like, there's no rules, which is it really raises the stakes of the series and makes you really feel the intensity. So let's get into the story. The main character of the series is a 16-year-old named Kamshiro. His family doesn't really give him emotional support when he needs it. He tells them what's wrong with him, and they don't really care. They tell him to shrug it off, and whatever. So he wants an escape from his family, and he wants an escape from from social areas like school because he gets bullied there, and he actually can't find anybody that will be friends with him. So he goes out and just starts wandering the streets at nighttime, not returning to his house because he doesn't want to go there. And when he wanders the street, he, of course, continues to get bullied by random gangsters and people who hang out on the street at night. So not very good people. And because of that, he is forced to fight in his defense. And as he learns how to fight and get better at it, he actually starts getting into street fights, and he starts getting pretty good at it. Along with that, he starts noticing a pretty violent change in his personality, maybe even enjoying the sensation of fighting and beating someone up. So that's the main premise of the story. There's also other characters that come in, but I'm not going to focus too much on them as, they come in later in the story and they're big plot elements. I'm just going to talk about the main character at that level. Not going to spoil anything. The concept of Holyland is really interesting and original. It centers entirely around street fighting, just like I said. Gritty and realistic street fighting. I'm not talking about they're in the ring with rules. They're out on the streets and there's no rules. People will use whatever means they can to win the fight, even if it means potentially seriously injuring or even killing their opponent. And that's what happens sometimes in some of the fights. So it keeps you on the edge of your seat because the fights are intense. You don't know what move someone's going to use. You don't know what martial art they're going to use. You don't know what combination of martial arts they're going to use. And you don't know if they're going to possibly, you don't know what they're going to sacrifice for that fight. Are they going to go for a kill shot or try to paralyze? So that's something that keeps it really realistic and keeps it grounded in real life. Now, for the actual story events itself, like I said before, it centers around the main character, Kamshiro. I'm not going to go too much into his story further on than the very first couple of chapters, but essentially, he's a really shy person and he doesn't get along with people, nor does he really get along with his family because they don't really help him. Because of this, that's why he goes on the street. The way that he learns fighting is by reading a manual, just learning how to throw a punch. And because of this, he's able to throw a really good punch. And as he goes on, he learns more fighting styles, how to fight, and he gets into street fights as he goes along. And that's really the furthest I'm going to go into that, but it really delves deep into the emotions that the main character feels. How he changes throughout the series, and how the other characters change, because the other minor characters go through really serious changes as the series progresses as well. And I'm getting into some, the character part of the review here as well, but that's because the characters, again, are very intertwined with the story. The story is just completely centered around the minds of the characters. In a way, you can say it's a psychological manga because of how much it focuses on the emotions that the characters are feeling. And it's believable and realistic with their emotions. You think these are real people, and as you go through, you really understand the struggles that they're going through. Holyland also has some really strong themes within the story, and I'm going to leave that for you to figure out because that's one of the best points of the story, figuring out the message that the author is trying to get across as you read, because it's just a great reveal as it goes on, and the philosophical message that it gives you at the end will really keep you thinking. I thought about it for a really long time, and I'm sure if you actually follow through in the series, you will too. It was really a life changer for me. It hasn't actually changed the events of my life yet, to my knowledge, but it really has changed the way I think about things. Every action I do in my life, it's something that I consider now, and it's pretty interesting that it's able to give you such a message that goes into real life so far and so depthfully. It shows how realistic everything that happens is. and how it can even connect with you. Even if you haven't actually experienced what these characters actually go through, you know, drug abuse, anything that happens on the streets, like fighting, gangs, stuff like that, you don't have to experience any of it to understand what's happening. You don't have to have gone through that in your life to connect with them. You understand, and it really gives you something to think about for a long time. It's got a great philosophical message, and it's got some really strong themes, stronger than in almost any manga that I've actually read at this point, which is pretty amazing. Now, going back to the characters, which I already did talk about a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth now. Like I said earlier, the characters are just so real. You see the depth of their emotions in their mind, and you really, really get to know and connect with them by the end of the series. They're just like real people, and as you see them throughout the series, you really just understand. That's all I can say. You just understand them so well. And it's like they're actually there. The story really goes into the depth, explores the depth of human darkness and what these characters can go through, how we change as people during our most vulnerable moments. And these characters change, not just the main character, but also some of the minor characters. It really does a very subtle change to these characters over time that you're going to slowly you're going to notice it slowly happening. And when that change finally sets in, it's a pretty interesting realization. I've been saying interesting a lot, but that's what it really is. It's an incredibly interesting story in every aspect. And, of course, there are ups and downs with the characters. There is a certain character that I feel is a little bit shoehorned in. A lot of his lines are attempt at comic relief, and a lot of them I just don't find funny. But I do understand his place in the story. It's that he doesn't do too much until a couple parts in the end, but for the most part, he's just kind of there. I feel like he is necessary to certain parts of the story, but he's just not an interesting personality. Also, as for one other character, he does have a point where it seems like a large part of his arc is skipped over, and they do that on purpose. It's just that it feels weird, and there's not an explanation for quite a while. I mean, for like the majority of the series. So that's just a couple things. It takes down a little bit, but it's not a huge thing. As for minor characters, there are recurring minor characters that you see, but there's not a lot of them. For the most part, the series just focuses on the main 4 characters pretty much entirely. There are, like I said, like 2 minor characters that keep recurring, and one of them is much more successful at comic relief than one of the main comic relief characters is supposed to be. He's actually really funny with his lines and his reactions. But most of the story is not really about comic relief. But again, it does put some in there, and a lot of it is pretty hit and miss. So the art of Holyland in the beginning is a little bit, it's not that good at the start, but once you get past those early volumes, it's just such a huge jump between each volume with the art. By the quarter-way point, the art is incredible, and it stays like that for the rest of the series. The art is really, really amazing. He uses lots of really sharp lines to really just bring out that intensity and emotion in those fight scenes, and it really drags you into the intensity. It's really, really great. But early on, it's going to be pretty... the art is pretty bad at the beginning, but the jump is pretty quick, and it's going to stay really good for the most of the series. There's, panels here and there, some funny faces that are not intentional, but you're not going to notice that for the most part. Early on, it's bearable. You just got to get past that, and like I said, quarter way in, it's really, really worth it because they really drag out the emotion. And another technique that the author uses, just like Kento Miura in Berserk, is Kentaro Miura, is the really crazy hatching that can happen on things, just lines going every direction in something, and again, it just brings out that intensity of emotion. As for my overall enjoyment of the series, the experience of reading Holyland from start to finish was incredible. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had actually reading anything, and I've read a lot of things, including comics, manga, and books, and it was just an incredible experience. The message that you're with at the end really makes you think, and it makes you reconsider a lot of things that have happened. You connect with the characters, you connect with the story, and it's really just an experience that you're going to remember for a really long time if you take the time to read it and connect with the characters and events. It had depthful characters, a really interesting and realistic story. It had pretty good art, especially for the latter half of the series. Really just another level of character development. And it was just one of the most enjoyable manga reading experiences I've had. It's just a great journey, and the pacing is perfect as well. 183 chapters, I believe, 182 chapters, and it doesn't feel too stretched out, and it doesn't feel too short that nothing is, that a lot of things are unexplained. I mean, there's no plot holes by the end, really. Everything's explained, and you don't feel like it's been dragged out or you need more. It ends off with a satisfying ending that you're going to think about. Overall, it was a really, really good series, and I really, really recommend that you read it. It was absolutely incredible. Thank you for watching the very first review that has gone up on my channel. If you enjoyed the content of this review and you're interested in seeing some more reviews of manga series and possibly some anime series, then consider subscribing or dropping a like on this video, or just giving me some constructive criticism in the comments. I really want to see what I can improve on and how I can make my reviews better. I also have another channel where I make some similar content all related to Star Wars, so some reviews on Star Wars content like books, the movies, comics, anything coming out with Star Wars, also some gaming videos with the Star Wars games. So if you're interested in Star Wars and like the style of content that I make, then just go check out that channel and you might find someone you like. Thanks so much for watching this video again, and I hope to see you guys watching my future content.